Gather round. It's time for your Real Estate Chalk Talk with the Hittner Group. Listen closely as your coaches discuss the culture, the economy, and the political scene, and how it affects your home and your real estate investments. Real Estate Chalk Talk is where you learn the science of buying and selling real estate and the art of living in your home. Your education begins in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Hey there, welcome to the program. This is your Real Estate Chalk Talk, broadcasting from the Hittner Group at Coldwell Banker Realty, HittnerGroup.com, Hittner Group, all one word, HittnerGroup.com, 612-627-8000. That's 612-627-8000. Give us a ring-a-ling-a-ling. Be happy to have a chat with you about your real estate needs. Of course, that first call is all with no cost and absolutely no obligation. Okay, here we go, kids. Fourth week of the year. A couple things I want to just throw out there. We now have the third year where, historically speaking, active inventory is now down 1.9% below the first day of the year.
Yeah.
Yep. Every year it's going down.
Going down.
Here's interesting. Average list price of all the pending sales, let's say median price. The median price is $409,000 of all the properties that are sitting there pending now waiting to close.
In the state of Minnesota.
In the 7-county metropolitan area, son.
Okay.
7-county metropolitan area. 409,000, right? Is that what I said?
Yes.
Yep.
Of the most recent ones, like this week, the median price is $339.
Picking up some of the...
So what's that tell you?
That tells me that first-time home buyers are driving the market.
Yep.
You're exactly right.
And that's what we're going to see, I think, in 2024. If you're not focusing on that, the first-time home buyers really drive the overall market, right? Mm-hmm. We always say first-time home buyers start the process, then those next folks that can move up, and then the trophy house buyers, and then ultimately, you got a guy like me with 3 kids living in a home. I'm going to be there for 20 years, right? Raising my children. And then hopefully I'll be able to downsize at some point. But those downsizers are running into cost problems.
Mm-hmm.
They're sitting in their homes. And so it's either paid for, or they've refinanced with Calvin over here to a very great interest rate, and they're just going to hang out for a while. So that hurts the overall inventory. But certainly with the median price being at $339, that's an impact of first-timers getting out there, which is a good thing.
That is a good thing.
Which is
interest
a good
rates.
thing.
It's because of interest rates.
I'm going to interrupt you a little bit. An interesting thing that I read this week was that the lowest percentage of resale homes is taking place than we've seen in a very long time. Meaning new construction has a big chunk of the market.
Right.
Interesting to me. Because of inventories.
Well,
so the inventories of new construction is far more than of available inventory than resale existing properties.
And some of that, and you can see that too, because the average time spent in a home now is almost 15 years. If you analyze.
Remember, we were talking earlier, it was 6 or 7 years, and then it was it went up a little bit. It's creeping up.
People
are back in 2003, 5, 6, we're like, 2-3 years. You're going to make a move, and that
make some money.
Yep, that has been increasing.
Okay, so last year, or in 2021, 6 million homes nationally, not in the 7-county metropolitan area.
Okay, just clarify.
Okay, good nationally, 6 million homes were sold in 2021.
Okay,
had 1.2 million realtors. Then in 22, that number came down to 5 million. All right. Last year, 3.9 million.
Wow.
That's a big drop.
It's a big drop.
That's a big drop, and that lends to, what you just said. The resale is just off. People just aren't moving now unless they absolutely have to.
But the number of realtors is up, so good.
That's a good news.
No, I'm just kidding.
No, it isn't. It's going down.
It is.
And we have a client who's actually works for Anywhere Real Estate, largest real estate conglomerate on the planet, and she's in licensing.
Okay.
And so I chatted with her about how's it going and all that stuff. A lot of people leaving.
Yep.
And I'm thinking, oh boy, are they going to a competitor or whatever? And she said, no, just leaving. Leaving the business.
Good.
Interesting. Okay, I got another one here from the Wall Street Journal. Wait a minute. I got to get this out there. Well, nobody cares about those numbers.
I kind of cared.
Do you?
Yeah.
Do you care about it?
Yep, I do.
Okay. So how many homes are on the market? 4,861 homes on the market, 7-county metropolitan area right now, this week, okay, as of yesterday morning.
That's up.
In 2023,
is that up a little bit?
It's up 800 or 400.
Yep.
Only 400. It's up. In 2022, what do you think that number was in 22, kids?
6,800.
Keith? 2022.
We're talking about inventory?
Inventory at this same week.
Yeah, about 6,000.
2,900.
I was right on.
Yeah, you were right.
Nailed it.
Yeah, 6,000 was 2019 pre-COVID.
Okay.
Pre-COVID.
Nailed it.
And then average days on the markets, you're running 40-ish, 45 days on the market for homes that have sold and pended. For the pended sales, 42 days, 42.7. For stuff that's not sold but still out there, 70 days on the market, still hanging out there.
Yeah, little hangover from the fall. I think with interest rates being in 8% range, fall was a challenge, and so homes that did come on the market in October that haven't sold, that are sitting there, that's a challenge.
And it's a lot of them too. The market was running up,
Yep.
and then people just get over their skis on pricing. I mean, you just got to be careful about pricing.
Why? Because prices are softer?
If prices are not, they are softer.
They're
softer. They're not going down.
We have this argument. He thinks the market's going up.
The market is going
down.
up. There's absolutely no question about it. Right now,
if you're curious, why are they doing this?
I saw a chart this year, Yeah, it was this year. It was this week, and the only one now that is predicting the market to go down is Realtor.com. They're the only one that remains.
And Keith Jr.
Keith Jr. Everyone else is saying that the market is going up. The market is going up. It's just
only I had an avenue to really get my thoughts out there.
I know it. All right. Wall Street Journal reports that investors purchased 570,000 homes last year, single-family homes. 570,000 single-family homes last year, about 15% of the market.
Wow.
That's down from the previous year where it was 802,000. Now, they're citing that the increases, prices are going up. Oh, prices are going up, Keith. Because prices are going up, it's less affordable and it's harder for them to rent. Rents are going down because we got all these cotton-picking rental units coming on the market. I mean, rental buildings are going up like corn coming out of the ground. And here's another one. Rent Cafe, that's the website. Rent Cafe, you ever hear of it?
No,
I have not.
Me either. But they're some.
Church.
They're rental. They're a big rental site. Rent Cafe.
Everybody's going to them.
Everybody goes to them.
Everybody.
Rent Cafe reports that office building conversions. This is interesting. Are up 457%. Empty office buildings being repurposed to residential rental units.
Love that.
So what does that mean for rents? And what does that mean for...
So rents are going to come down,
Rents
right?
will come... Supply.
Right?
Supply
so rents
up.
will come down, but the BlackRock's buying single-family homes is going to decrease because it's too expensive, correct?
Single-family homes.
Single-family homes.
Single-family homes. So the point of it is that you've got now so many more options out there for someone who's renting. What does that do, or does it do anything to the pressure on home prices?
Should make them come down. It would fall in line with what Junior was saying at the beginning of the year. On home prices coming down, it would contribute to it.
Well, I think you're right, because it
reduces the amount of folks that are interested in purchasing homes. So when you look at interest rates, and I point at Calvin, but when you look at interest rates being around 6%, and what you can purchase the property for currently, it's a $400,000 house at 6%, if you can go and rent that property for less, and you are in a position where you're like on the fence about renting versus buying, then you're just going to elect to rent, especially with rents softening, as prices will continue to soften as well.
What do you think about people now who purchased single-family homes at high prices, are renting them, and now rents come down?
What do you mean high prices?
at the high prices of the past. I mean, they bought it at the peak. Let's be
What
real.
past?
The last couple of years.
The most recent past in the last 2 years?
Yes, the most recent past in the last 2 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so there is a little bit of a conversation on like, oh boy, those people have, 2.375 interest rates. Instead of selling that property, they are in a good position to continue to rent that property. But as rents come down too, or soften, on holding that property, is it better just to get your equity out? My position, and we're going to go out to break here, my position is if it is not your intention to buy rental real estate, well, then sell the property and move on. Because now you've become an unintended landlord. Now you have to manage a property that you had no interest in doing so in the first place. With that, give us a call at 612-627-8000. That number again is 612-627-8000. This is Real Estate Chalk Talk. You can log on to our website anytime at hittnergroup.com.
Welcome back to the program. This is your Real Estate Chalk Talk with the Hittner Group. Hittner Group, all one word, hittnergroup.com, 612-627-8000, 612-627-8000. Go to that website. Hey, it's one of the oldest real estate websites in the world, hittnergroup.com. Been up and running when it was just an electronic billboard way back in the day. Okay, one of my favorite topics coming up. We got Michelle Knies on the program, attorney at law, family law in Minnesota and Wisconsin. You know what I was excited to see? Prior to your getting into family law, you were a business litigator.
I was, yes.
So explain what that is for people who are listening. Just what does a business litigator do?
Well, at least what I did,
Mm-hmm.
I helped with all sorts of different business disputes. I did some broker-dealer securities stuff. I helped out with some employment defense cases. I actually even did some work in the dentistry industry.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, so it was just kind of a smattering.
Is that how you got those nice teeth?
I had an orthodontist that was not an orthodontist.
Paid in kind. Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
No, I mean, I did a smattering of different kinds of litigation, all just sort of in the business realm, small, closely held corporations, I must call it the business divorce, where, you have people that are getting into arguments and we have to figure out how they're going to split the business or somehow restructure to make it work.
So that brings us to one of my favorite topics, and that is divorce, because I read somewhere that there's going to be 30 million weddings this year, and
60 million divorces.
Half. It's
Yeah.
it's half. So it's 15 million divorces, 30 million weddings, and 15 million divorces. So both of those are key things for real estate. People get
Great
married.
news.
Yeah, the good news is that gives us 45,000 or 45 million opportunities there.
Yeah.
But the business side of that, because your background in business,
Yeah.
and I love small business. I mean, I grew up in small business. Keith and I had a small business. Our real estate practice is like a small business, and when you're involved in that small business in your family and you get a divorce, it's a little different than if you're talking a W-2 employee that works for Honeywell.
Oh, absolutely.
So how do you unwind the business side of thing? A friend of ours who had a business and got divorced recently, he's bitter, man, about that whole thing. I'm bitter is even mild.
Yeah, that was
Yeah.
being kind.
Yeah.
Oh.
So explain that, how that gets involved and
Yeah.
what kinds of dynamics are in that.
Well, I think it depends on the case, right? I mean, I went through that. Mine was fairly simple, but if one spouse is just the sole proprietor, that can be quite easy. It gets difficult when the spouses are working together in the business, and that's one person's livelihood, but they're a non-owner. And then we have to figure out how they're going to continue to work together, or figure out how that exit's going to happen. Another challenge, I think, comes with the payout. So if we have a valuation of a certain amount, it doesn't always mean that we can liquidate that amount of money and pay it to the spouse.
Come up with that money.
So then you're negotiating maybe some sort of payment over time. Another way is we just sort of use an income approach, and then we're kind of restructuring it so it's paying out as income in a support level.
It'd be better to have that come out as income, because then at least you can write it off as wages versus not being able to write it off.
Depends whose side you're on.
Well,
I'm on my side.
Explain.
And it would be better to
explain that.
in
Which
wages.
side is it better?
Well, it depends on the case, I think, because
feel like she took
depending
a
who
shot.
I represent and whether somebody would be, let's say, a spousal maintenance candidate, you know, sometimes we'll decide, are we going to want this to be property or do you want it to be income? And it's really case specific. But I think through, okay, like what's the implications if we call it spousal long term? What's the implications if we call it property and a property payout long term? Just depends on the case.
What about
And that's exactly our friend situation. Husband, wife, inside the business, both working there. One has to exit the business, you know, all that. So.
Oh, yeah.
That's a challenge. I mean, it really
That
comes
was-
into how the business is formed to begin with, whether they're in the business or not in the business, right?
So you're also a 114 qualified mediator.
Correct.
Okay. So
114.
what does that mean?
Hold on, yeah.
Yeah.
Rule 114. What does that mean?
So it's a Minnesota rule of general practice, and it's basically it brings in all of the what we call ADR providers, alternative dispute resolution. Mediators are one of them. It basically provides us some rules that we have to live by, gives us some protections legally, and just kind of keeps the quality up. We have to do training, not annually. I think you report every 3 years. But just kind of, it sets a standard.
Do you have to be an attorney to be a mediator?
No.
Is it more difficult to be an attorney to be a mediator? Is there a conflict there because you're normally representing someone? Now all of a sudden you put yourself in a position where you're actually not.
Yeah.
That's
Well,
gotta
you
be probably
can't
hard.
mediate for somebody that you're representing, correct?
Correct.
It has to be a completely separate scenario.
Yes. You know, I think it depends on the person. Some attorneys, I would think, maybe would really struggle with that and putting that hat on. I personally don't, because even when I'm representing somebody, I'm taking a problem-solving approach. I'm very practical. You know, I don't like to just think about, you know, this is the next step in the process as if the process matters more than the case and the person. So I'm already thinking about, practically speaking, how would we walk out these scenarios that we're talking about? And that's not a far leap from being a mediator. It's just a little bit of a shift in terms of what I'm representing, right? And when I'm the neutral, I represent nobody. I
Right.
just facilitate.
When you were talking to people and you took a big breath there.
Well, I was going to ask a question, but I never,
All right. Well, go ahead and ask your question. Please, Kelvin.
Thank you.
Kelvin Kamick, ladies and gentlemen, asking a question first time in 3 weeks.
No, I try. You can't. Can you get a word in edgewise here?
I'm
typically?
having a hard time.
Yeah, just go ahead and check your email.
I will.
ahead.
On the mediation side, do you feel like you solve anything in mediation, or is it? I know it's a necessary step in Minnesota, but is it just kicking the can and then like the reality is no one agrees on anything anyway, and then eventually we just walk through that.
Spend
process.
a bunch of money
Sure,
and
yeah.
then agree, and then finally end up where the mediator puts you in the first place.
Yeah, I mean, I think depends on the quality of the mediation too. If everybody's walking in sort of half prepared because the mediation was sort of the stake in the ground to you know, set the timeline. If we're all looking at this for the first time at mediation, it's probably not going to be. It might be productive, but maybe not very quality. I think if everybody's kind of done their homework on the front end and we've tried to negotiate amongst ourselves first, and there are actual points of disagreement, mediation can be a really good way to go there. So, you know, I just think it depends on sort of how you
On
approach
who's showing
it.
up.
Yeah, absolutely.
Are you finding that people are doing mediations in person? They're doing it on Zoom because they don't want to be in the same room as the other person? What's going on there?
Well, it's funny. I think most people are doing Zoom. Me personally, I like in person. It's just me.
Yeah.
But what's funny is with the Zoom, I've noticed it's almost more awkward because everybody's staring at each other's face.
Right.
And so,
It's kind of like I'm like,
yeah, I mean, you notice more.
You get all the nonverbals.
and you're looking at this stuff behind them, like where are they living now? That's
Right.
bullshit. You know?
Exactly. I mean, it is very different, and
Yeah.
it is a little stranger than being in person.
Yeah.
So.
I am kind of a process guy, so when you look at the process of the divorce itself, do you think it's better to have the mediation on the front end or on the back end? Is it something you do because the state mandates it, or should it be something that let's start here and then if this doesn't work out, and let's start in earnest. And then how do you counsel people to understand that, this could be a real resolution here without spending a bunch of money?
Yeah. Well, and I think as far as the state goes, they require it before you go to court, right?
Okay.
So if you don't need to go to court, you don't have to mediate in order to get divorced.
Did not know that.
Yeah, but before you go to a judge and say, hey, I want a trial date, they'll say, have you mediated? And if not, you have to mediate. So, I think when I talk to people about mediation, I just say, look, we've been talking for a while. A lot of times the parties have been talking amongst themselves first.
The parties meaning the people getting divorced or the people getting divorced plus their attorneys?
The people getting divorced.
Okay.
So, and I think to your question of timing, it depends on who's coming in the door. The people who have tried to do it themselves first and they've already exchanged information, they already, have kind of talked through what they want this to look like, and then they hire attorneys, they're the ones that are probably set up to mediate early on because they already have expectations set. They're already there. Yeah. If other people are coming in early and they're saying, look, I have no idea. They just told me they want a divorce. Here's my bank statements. I think it's better that we wait a little bit and go through and kind of analyze everything and kind of see what it looks like.
We're going to continue to analyze with Michelle Canese from Meserly Kramer. When we return, this is Real Estate Chalk Talk. Log on to our website, hittnergroup.com, HITTNER group.com, or give us a call at 612-627-8000. That number again is 612-627-8000, and we'll be right back.
Hey, welcome back. Thanks for staying with us. This is your Real Estate Chalk Talk, and we're talking with Michelle Canese, and we're talking divorce. And I would like to know, first of all, if people are listening and they think, gosh, she sounds like she's pretty level-headed, I'd kind of like to give her a ring-a-ling-a-ling. Do you have a phone number, or where can they get a hold of you?
You can call Meserly Kramer at 612-672-3600.
Okay, and they can get a hold of you, and you can straighten them out.
Absolutely.
DIY divorce. So people start down, I've had this happen. We're working with, we can do it ourselves. We just go file the papers.
There's some forms online.
Yeah. Do some forms
print
online.
those off.
Yeah.
Everything is good until it's not good. Right?
Everything is good
100%.
until it's
Literally,
not good.
we had past clients together that did that literally with pen. They filled in the blanks with pen, submitted it. It's done.
Yeah.
It is done.
Yeah, and that's great for people who have nothing.
Right. They're in their mid-20s. They're like, we shouldn't have gotten married.
Yeah.
No kids.
I'm sorry, sorry about this.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah.
My bad.
We could still be friends, maybe sleep together once in a while.
There you go.
At what point do you... so people start out sometimes, and it always starts out, it's a mutual thing where we're going to get divorced, unless it's not. Sometimes it's World War III, and they just go, hire an army.
Right.
And they go and they say we're going to mediate and all that, and then they realize that probably they need to a family member or some outsider says, you really should get an attorney.
Yeah.
And then suddenly all bets are off, and it's almost like you completely start over again.
Yes.
And where there wasn't a war, suddenly there's a battle going on of stuff that you thought you'd already agreed upon.
Mm-hmm.
Is that common?
Yeah, I think a little too common because I think it's preventable.
Mm-hmm.
I say when you mediate or try to negotiate a divorce settlement, it's kind of like making sausage.
Mm-hmm.
And if you get to the end point and then you bring it to a lawyer to draft and kind of make comment, they weren't there. They didn't see it being made, so they're going to have all kinds of questions. They're going to
wait a minute.
Right. They're going to unravel the deal pretty fast.
How many years were you married?
Well, yeah. I've had it come where they came in with signed agreements and they brought it to attorneys, and we ended up in trial.
Real trial?
Yes.
Oh, really?
Unfortunately, but when you don't know what you don't know, we'll see mistakes that are a lot heavier than the clients would even realize, and they had no idea what they were signing up for. And a lot of times with those deals that they make on their own, even if they pass through the court system and the judge signs off, sometimes you don't know what's buried in there, and you'll have a situation come up years later that was not properly addressed, and now you're going back trying to fix everything, which could be more expensive than had you just had somebody represent you in the beginning. And a lot of times it comes in on real estate.
Mm-hmm.
Talk about the most common things you see as you're talking about that. Talk about the most common things you see that are kind of mistakes that you're going, oh crap, they didn't realize that X. What are some of those things? Anything come to mind?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of times the retirement pensions, people don't understand that defined benefit concept, and they think it's nothing. We're not getting anything out of it right now. They'll just give it away. Real estate title issues or just the conveyance terms that they put in.
Okay.
There's a lot of times just intangible assets that are missed,
Explain that.
Well, let's say rights to rent, different things like that where you wouldn't stock options, like you wouldn't necessarily think, hey, let's divide this thing because you don't see it, but they'll forget about it.
How about future values of things? A business that was started maybe when the couple was together and they both worked very hard, getting it off the ground. And then they're divorced, and it turns out that it's turns out to be the next bright shiny object and is worth a gazillion dollars, and so then you got the spouse who was left on the side when it was valued at nothing. All of a sudden wants his or her taste.
Oh, that can be a huge issue.
How do you address that at the time of the divorce, though?
Well, again, I think it depends on the situation and who you represent. And again, what's available for payout. My guess would be that there'd be at least one expert valuing the business, and there's different methods of that. And if there's a disagreement with the valuation, you have the battle of the experts come up. But again, I think it depends on who you're talking to. I mean, some people will say, again, this is the process, and here are the rules of valuation, and this is what we do. For me, I look at it and say, well, what can we actually do here in terms of like extracting the value that we agree on and making sure everybody's made whole? I mean, sometimes, rarely, but sometimes people can continue to work together, especially when, let's say one of the spouses is it's a unique business. They know all the inside stuff, and the owning spouse doesn't want them to go.
Right,
because
they're the engineer.
Yeah, I mean, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if we can, I mean, honestly, if I can structure something and keep everybody in a good mood where they can come out of this in a space where they can continue to work together, I mean, great. But that's usually not the case.
Michelle, do you find yourself working with a lot more like higher net individuals, more complicated divorces? Being with the law firm that you're at, I imagine, the very uncomplicated divorce scenarios, they don't generally come to a larger law firm to handle divorce situations.
Absolutely, yes. And I've noticed that a lot more since I've been at Messerly. And I owned a firm a while back, and it was a smaller boutique firm, and our clients were the same size. I think the volume got turned up a lot in those cases because there's it's more emotional. I think they kind of they're not quite as grounded sometimes, and so that comes with its own challenges. But now being at Messerly, yes, we were having some high net worth clients coming in the door, and now the challenges are sort of the complication of the estate.
Yeah. Is that refreshing to you because you're new with this firm?
Yes, absolutely. It's fun, and it's a fun brain exercise. Honestly, I like puzzles and I like challenges. So.
Talk about Karen waiver.
Yeah.
What that is. Good.
Yeah.
Is it good? Is it bad? And
depends on who you're
I was about to say it depends on who you're representing. The lawyer answer.
I know that's the annoying lawyer answer.
Right. I know.
So talk through the pros and cons of it, and just give people perspective of what it is.
Sure. So the Karen waiver, as it's called, basically is a divorcing party's decision to not have the court have the ability to modify their spousal maintenance agreement in the future. So while the court couldn't do that at trial, parties can do that by agreement. And so you have to kind of weigh, okay, let's say husband's going to pay wife $1,000 a month for 10 years, right? Do you want it to be modifiable or not modifiable? Not modifiable is the Karen waiver. Okay. Modifiable is just the general maintenance award. And so if you don't Karenize it, as we say, then your award is subject to change potentially if there's a substantial change in circumstances. And that
whose circumstances?
It
the
could
recipient
be either.
Or the other one?
It could be either.
So the other guy, whoever's on the other side, wins the lottery or gets a great job, and now the spouse from 5 years ago
Right.
is going back to court with the handout, saying I want more money.
Yeah.
Why is that
That's
even
ridiculous.
have anything to do with it? I mean,
Well,
they weren't
right?
even there.
So here's the thing. A lot of times when we're setting maintenance, it's going to be based on the standard of living established during the marriage. And the idea is we'd
The
like
standard of living, or what is needed now to live?
the standard of living. That is the law, right? And so a lot of times when you're divorcing, that's not really possible to replicate twice.
Heck no.
Right.
How are you going to do that?
Now we
Yeah.
have two households with the same status. It's
Right.
not even possible.
Right, exactly. And so you end up with a scenario. It ends up meeting a spouse's need, but that need is sort of defined by what we've done in the past, right? So let's say you set an award that, isn't exactly, it's not like you've now created two households with the same budget. You've kind of manufactured something that works in two separate households but kind of honors the spending habits you had before. Now, years later, let's say the obligor hits the lottery, and the receiving spouse comes in and wants a part of it. And certainly, if I were their attorney, I'd say, hey, my client has been underpaid this whole time. Their standard of living was here, higher, and they're getting a lower amount, so pay up because now you have more resources, you can pay it. And on the other side, it would be, this is not a profit sharing plan. They didn't win the lottery during the marriage.
Right.
This is not something, for the other spouse to have. So again, it depends on where you're at. And
Into the courtrooms you go.
right. Exactly.
All right. So then, with that, in the last minute, what is your opinion of a better way? If you could structure a divorce process that was better, what would it look like?
And with all due respect to the court system, because they're tied to our laws, right? I mean, they have to follow the law. But if litigants parties can just take a step back and understand that while their emotions are kind of raw right now, the things that we're talking about are going to be in place for the rest of their life, right? And so we really have to think about what this looks like walking out. And instead of negotiating emotionally, trying to get what's yours, quote unquote, or trying to, stick it to the other side, really think about how this practically is going to work. And if you can do that and kind of stay away from the court system, that's the best way to go.
Well, if they want to get in touch with you, Michelle, how do they do that?
So they can email me actually at mkniess, it's KNIESS, at messerlykramer.com.
Real Estate Chalk Talk. We're going to head out to break. We'll be right back with the final segment when we return.
Going to wrap.
Money in the bank.
Rates are good. Pretty exciting. You know why? Free money. You understand what I'm saying?
Hey, welcome back. Thanks for staying with us. This is your Real Estate Chalk Talk with the big money segment of the program. That's the segment everybody waits for to hear about the ratios.
That's why
and
it's
such.
last.
Yeah, that's why it's last.
Everybody has to stay through the program to get to this segment.
Yep, they hang on.
Good. Well, let's talk a little bit about money and finance and where things are at. So, had a increase in rates this week, so we're kind of hugging that higher sixes area.
Again?
You look confused.
Yeah, I'm just surprised.
Yeah. So
It seems like there's no reason for it.
No, there is no reason for it, and you need the headline. So it went up a little bit. So you're still, we keep talking that 30-year fixed mortgage, kind of that's the rate everybody kind of gauges off. You're probably 6.75, or we can't say an exact rate because then you have to have the APR, blah, blah, blah. So probably mid to high sixes is where you're at right now. So not horrible, but it does, I think we're getting better. I did, from the earlier segment when we were talking about just rental income and stuff like that, and you said, well, if you got a $400,000 home, you put a little bit of money down, can you rent? Well, a payment on a $400,000 home with 5% down, because that's typical for first-time home buyer, you're looking at a payment of about $3,100 now.
Yeah, renting is less expensive.
Right, so renting's a lot less expensive, so that's why on
that same single-family home.
For sure. So, I mean, just as a for instance, I have a property I can't give away in Lakeville, and please call me if you need a great, fantastic 2016 built Rambler with 4 bedrooms and 3 bathrooms and all the things.
You got a Rambler? Big bedroom on the main level?
Yeah, main level. It's like an executive Rambler, but there's association maintenance, et cetera, et cetera. Not selling the house right now. The point is, I looked at renting it for them for a period of time because this was a divorce situation. She bought the house. Now she's hooked back up with a great guy, and they're blending their families, et cetera. and now we're selling one of the asset there prior to them
merging,
maybe getting married. Yeah,
prior to the merger.
Sure.
Merger.
So gonna sell that.
Can we call it merger going?
Gonna sell that.
I think that
gonna
would be
sell
fun.
the merger prior to the merger.
Prior to the merger.
There's your business background.
Right, there you
Work
go.
that
Yep.
in. And we're looking at renting the property, and frankly, rents are softer, and so could we have rented it for $3,200 or $3,300 18 months ago? I think we certainly could have. Coincidentally, we could have sold that house for another $30,000 18 months ago too, in my strong opinion. When the market was how it was with the interest rates the way they were, it was easier to sell properties fudged up a little bit higher in terms of pricing, and we've talked about it a ton, multiple offer situations, etc. Point being, the rent on that property is like high twos, $2,900, $2,895, under $3,000 for sure. And we're seeing the same thing with two-story homes. So two-story family, quote, air quote, family style homes, 4 bedrooms upstairs, 3 bathrooms, finished basement or not. Same thing. Those are like high 2,000s. So there's not as much of a gap between, like, I have a rental property in Lakeville myself that is $2,200 a month. Split level, 4 beds, 2 baths, 2-car garage, 2,000 square feet. You can get 3 or 3,500 square feet for under or around $3,000 a month. So when you're looking at a house for $400,000, what is that house? That house is a 4-bed, 2-bath, split level. Maybe it's a 2-story, older, dated. So to go out and purchase the equivalent, it's just cheaper to rent.
But now we'd get into that whole other conversation.
And I've got way too much stuff to have that conversation.
Sure.
So we'll keep going.
What, regarding home ownership versus
wealth building?
Yeah.
So it just everything depends, right?
Yeah.
Like our friend Michelle will say in the legal business, everything depends. Like, are they transient? Did they just get a divorce?
Right.
Are they just moving into the area? Do they have children? They're setting down roots. Are they younger and they're there's all kinds of reasons why it's time to start buying real estate, which I'm a huge proponent of. I've been selling real estate for a long time. But there are times when you should rent as well.
Right.
You talked a little bit in the earlier segment, Keith, about the unintended landlord, that's not a good thing, sell the property, blah, blah, blah.
I don't think it's not a good thing. I just think
that's what you said. If we roll the tape back, you said
we can roll it back, and what I said, what I will always say to my clients or anybody else that's looking for advice, was it your intention or is it your intention to own? Maybe it wasn't in the beginning,
right?
But now your intention is to own rental real estate. Okay, well, if that's the case, would you buy this property to rent? That's the question.
Well, the situation, though, that we run, we have a past client right now, right? They're locked in. I locked them in at 2.875, right? We hit the market, perfect timing, perfect. Well, now jobs have taken them to the west side of town. They're in Rosemont. They're like, there's no way we can do this. And he's like, I'm going to sell the property and go, and I'll take high 6s. So our conversation now is, well, do you hold on to that low? Because his payment is low for a big house that he could probably rent it. And he's like, well, I don't want to be a landlord. And I'm like, well, you might want to be a landlord.
A low interest rate is no reason to hold a property. That is just not that is a factor maybe in your determination of whether or not that property can be profitable for you.
Right.
But it is certainly not a reason, a top tier reason that you would have a decision maker reason of whether or not.
Well, cash flowing rental real estate is a very, cash flowing rental
cash flow works.
Cash flowing rental real estate is fantastic. A lot of times you would buy a property and not have a cash flow. Maybe you're feeding it a little bit, and that is fine too, depending on your overall goals of like acquiring real estate for rental purposes. Appreciation, depreciation, they're paying it down versus you paying it down. There's all kinds of reasons why. For him, maybe it is, hey, look at the attractive numbers here if you were to be a rental, real estate guy now. And if he has cash otherwise to put down on the next property. If you don't have the money and you need to sell the house in order
then
to
you
get,
do it.
then you sell the house.
Yep.
But if you're in a good environment where, okay, well, now we're this age and our kids are going to be in college, and hey, by the time there's all kinds of factors. Right? Rental real estate is a great idea.
Yeah, it's just an interesting conversation, and it was, now he's like, well, maybe I should talk to a rental, like a management company. How much will that cost me a month?
Yeah.
And if I could step away from it,
not touch
it, and then have someone manage it because it cash flows so well, then it's a maybe, in that scenario. So
and then you're adding that into your overall investment portfolio, so diversification of, the overall
assets.
Sure.
So that's kind of where the market's at. So markets has stayed pretty steady, up a little bit. We're in good shape. We're getting busier. We're feeling the spring market come, probably because it's so dang nice out. It was cold, but now it's so nice out again. So I don't feel like we feel like we're busy. Super Bowl isn't up yet. We usually say it starts after the Super Bowl, but we're getting busy already. So it's a nice feeling.
Loan applications up.
Loan apps are definitely up in our world. So that's great. And it's a combination of purchase and then refinancing all the credit card debt that people have accumulated over the COVID time, over thinking there'll be another bailout of this or that. We see student loans coming due now, so now people are having that student loan payment. So they're trying to kind of look at everything, going, okay, how do I structure this? How do I have a good budget? And so we're doing some cash out refinances, getting people in a little bit better shape financially. So
nice.
Real quickly, give me just update on the market because people listen to this segment a lot for this information. So
yeah, Senior was talking earlier about where the median sales price is right now at about 340-ish, and that is the first-time home buyers kind of taking up the market. The trophy house buyers, the want to, like, I want a fourth bathroom, or I want a finished basement, or I want a 3-car garage. That stuff's just out right now. People aren't moving around because they want to.
Right.
They're moving around because they have to. Divorce situations. Deaths, births, relocations, things like that. That's always going to happen in real estate. And then those first timers, 6%. I mean, I bought my first house, I think I was 21 years old, and I'm pretty sure I was at 6.875. So interest rates are right in that same zone right now. So of course values are a lot different than they were when I was 21. But it's a great.
But so is income.
And so,
income is a lot different too.
So it's a great time to dip your toe in the water. I have a couple of first timers right now that we're looking at houses anywhere between $300,000 and $400,000. The first sense is that there's not going to be a lot available. But if you're looking at a general location as opposed to like a specific elementary school district, if you're looking at a general location, there's plenty to choose from.
Right.
If you're looking south of the river, west suburbs, north of the city, whatever it is, there's plenty to choose from. And that's really where we're going to spend a lot of time this year, is just getting those first-timers moving into properties, out of rental situations, that want to start putting roots down in areas and starting to own real estate.
Real quick question for Michelle. Michelle's with us with Meserly Kramer. And on the divorce side, talk real quickly about spousal maintenance. How long does it go? And child support. How long does it go? Is it hard set rules?
It depends.
Okay.
I mean, the spousal maintenance, there's a lot of factors that go into the duration, including how long you're married, how long it'll take for the receiving spouse to become self-supporting, whether or not you know what that timeline looks like. Child support, generally, it ends when per child when each kid turns 18 and graduates from high school.
Okay.
Sometimes you can get support for a dependent child that has perhaps special needs beyond. But generally speaking, 18 and graduating from high school. So, yeah.
For the spousal maintenance, how long do you go what's the marriage rule? Is it half the number of years you're married, or is it all depends on?
That's the urban myth. Yeah.
Is that not right?
It's not. I mean, no. I mean, it really does depend. And I think every situation's different because, again, you have to look at, what the person that's asking for maintenance, what's their history of being out of the market, job market.
Yeah.
And perhaps something happened, during the marriage, like a disability occurred or something like that could, lend itself to a longer duration than would otherwise be. There's a lot of reasons for spousal to change.
So many things depend on. It depends.
It depends.
Right?
It depends.
You can call
You
Calvin.
can all be lawyers. That's the answer.
That's right. We're all very good at that. You can call Calvin anytime at 651-231-2500. Calvin Kamick, our mortgage guru. Michelle, thanks for coming in, talking divorces.
Absolutely.
And I'm Keith Hittner for Keith Hittner. This is Real Estate Chalk Talk. Log on to our website, hittnergroup.com, 612-627-8000. See you next week.